Now we're turning our focus to design in the modern world. We're looking at the period of time from the beginning of World War I to 1960, and there are huge changes taking place in this period. But to give you an idea, looking at the larger period, really everything from neoclassical up till the end of this period, about 1960, we're in what's called the modern world. This is a time when people put great faith in science and technology. We will see that in design. And they're going to look at the world as the individual serving the society rather than the society serving the individual, which is arguably more of the standpoint that we see now in the 21st century. With that in mind, let's look at some historical context. We're starting with World War I, this brutal slaughterhouse of a conflict where millions of troops will go to their own death. And over a 4-year period, we're going to see some really incredible numbers when you look at casualties, including wounded, missing in action, and killed. And what we see is as many as 20 to 40% of the male population in many of these countries, including Serbia, Germany, France, and Russia, will be eliminated. It causes a huge demographic issue for these countries. It becomes an issue again historically when you get to World War II. But the slaughterhouse effect that we get from World War I really has an impact on people. Because of World War I, we will see a couple of art movements coming out. One is Dada, famous for Fountain by Marcel Duchamp, which you see on the left, but also for the Dada movement overall. And the Dada movement is really trying to subvert the society because they see it as society's fault that this slaughter happened in Europe. We'll also see German New Objectivity, where they look at really the ultimate impact of the war on German society. And we see incredible numbers of amputations due to the war. We see people with horrible injuries, horrible casualties. And we see that in German New Objectivity. What they're trying to do is show the people the horrors of war so that they don't go back and do it again. Of course, we know that that's not going to be the case, that Germany will start another war, but this is the hope at the time. So a lot of reaction against war. We will see the Great Depression, of course, hitting not only the United States, but Europe overall, and having a huge impact not only on art, but also on design. And World War II, of course, we usually think of it as 1939 to 1945, but in fact it starts earlier in places like China and Manchuria, but it has a huge impact. More specifically for us, it's going to have a huge impact afterwards. Decolonization. Now, you're going to see these European countries that we've been looking at colonizing, Asia and Africa, backing out of those. And the reason they're doing that is not necessarily some benevolent cause. Rather, it's simply looking at expense. Their empires are starting to collapse. They cannot support these colonies, and they had set up an unsustainable model for the most part. So they start to decolonize. We will see the rise of the nuclear family home. This is what we're all familiar with today, the idea of mom, dad, and the kids living at home, in opposition to the much older tradition, which is that the grandparents and other family members would also be in the home, where you might have 2, 3, maybe 4 generations all living under the same roof. This has a huge impact on housing because you almost can't have enough housing in the country for this idea to take place. In fact, it's one of the reasons why real estate is so expensive today. We also see an incredible increase in income in the post-war period, specifically 1945 to 55. What you see is a household increase in the United States averaging somewhere in the ballpark of a 3 times increase in wages, which means that's why we look at this period and we go, oh, look, one parent worked and one could stay home. Well, that was very doable at the time because, of course, if income increases 3 times, well, yeah, you can probably support the family on one income. Now, obviously, that doesn't continue past 1955, and we've seen incomes drop off. But what it does is it creates an incredible amount of disposable income and a much larger middle class, which has a huge impact on interior design.